They took my husband while I was cutting the cake. The agent said, "You'll understand everything soon." I held my son, watched the trial, and stayed quiet. But when they played the final clip, everyone looked stunned, even him. The knife never reached the last slice. I remember because the frosting had just started to drag, pulling the edge of the strawberry layer loose. I was laughing at something his mother said, something about how much sugar our son was sneaking, and then the music cut. Not faded, cut. I looked up. Flashbulbs, suits, and guns. Federal agents, black jackets, unreadable faces. They moved through the party like they weren't part of the world we were standing in. One of them said his name once clearly. Elias Grant. He was holding our son, still smiling. He turned, confused, like they had the wrong man. They didn't. Two of them took his arms. Another gently removed the toddler from his chest. The others spoke fast, words clipped and firm, something about detainment and rights and probable cause. I didn't move. The knife was still in my hand. The frosting now smeared against my fingers. I blinked. Someone behind me whispered, "What the hell?" Another phone went up. The flash lit the side of Elia's face, and even then, even in that moment, he didn't fight. He looked at me, and I swear he almost smiled. Not cruel, not scared. Like he was waiting for this, I rushed forward. "There has to be a mistake." The lead agent turned to me. "You'll understand everything soon." "No, I don't. He didn't do anything." But they were already walking him away. Cameras followed. My son cried, and all I could do was hold him, clutching his tiny arms to my chest, whispering again and again to no one in particular. "There has to be a mistake." They pulled me inside before I could follow the cars. The guests had started to panic, some frozen, some filming, others whispering fast and low like rumors could stitch the whole wide open in the air. I remember the sound of my heels on the tile, how it echoed, how fake it felt. Inside, everything was colder, quieter. Two agents stood in the foyer with me. My son was still crying, red-faced, fists curled against my collarbone. I didn't know if I was holding him or if he was holding me. "Sit down," the lead agent said. "I'm not a suspect," I snapped. He didn't flinch. "You'll understand everything soon." I hated that sentence. I hated the way he said it, like it was a gift, like he was giving me time to grieve something I didn't even know had died yet. My sister was the first to burst through the front door. "What's going on?" she demanded. "Where's Elias?" I looked at her, my mouth opened. Nothing came out. The agent stepped in. "Ma'am, this is an active investigation." My sister's face flushed. "Into what?" "They just dragged him out of his own house during his son's party." His mother came in next, pale, shaking. Her husband trailing behind her, phone already pressed to his ear, whispering to someone, a lawyer probably. "Maybe 5. They didn't even let him say goodbye," she whispered. I sat down on the edge of the staircase, still holding my son, still trying to remember if I'd seen it coming, still trying to believe I hadn't. They kept repeating it. "You'll understand everything soon." As if everything I already knew, or thought I did, didn't matter anymore. The house was too quiet without his voice. Too clean without his jacket thrown over the arm of the couch, or his shoes half-kicked under the bench by the door, like he always meant to put them away but never did. I put our son to bed alone for the first time in years. He was still sniffling, soft, broken sobs with no words behind them. I stroked his hair, whispered lullabies I hadn't sung in months, felt his little hands curl against my side like he was afraid I'd disappear too. I promised I wouldn't. I lied. Downstairs, the cake still sat on the counter. The knife where I dropped it, frosting smudged across the granite like a scar no one had the nerve to wipe clean. There were still handprints on the box. His, mine, our son's, sticky from too much icing and watermelon punch. I wiped them off with a damp cloth. Slowly, carefully, like erasing evidence. Like pretending the night never happened. Then I sat in the dark with a glass of water and stared at the untouched slice of cake I'd saved for him. The one with the sugar rose on top. It looked stupid now. The whole party did. The balloons, the tiny banners. The framed photo collage of the three of us smiling on beaches, at theme parks, in kitchens, on couches. All of them timed perfectly between holidays and headlines. Everyone said we were the couple people wanted to be. They didn't know how tightly I'd learned to smile. I didn't cry that night. I didn't scream or call the agent's number or beg for answers I wasn't ready to hear. I just sat there and let myself breathe. Because I knew whatever was coming next, it would be louder than anything I could imagine, and I'd need my voice when it arrived. The headlines hit before morning. They always do. By the time I got out of bed and turned on my phone, my husband's face was everywhere. Grainy pictures of the arrest, slanted headlines with heavy fonts, news anchors standing outside our house as if it belonged to the public now. Local philanthropist Elias Grant, accused of multi-million-dollar wire fraud. Federal investigation uncovers shell companies, tax evasion, suspicious offshore transfers. Possible homicide linked to warehouse disappearance, still under review. Possible homicide. I stared at that one the longest. My inbox was a mess. Messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. A group chat from college lit up like fireworks. OMG, is that the same Elias? What the hell is happening? Do you think she knew? I didn't reply. I read them all, one by one, then deleted the thread. My sister left 3 voicemails before noon. The last one was quiet, just her breathing for a few seconds before she said, "Call me, please." I didn't. Instead, I sat in the bathroom with the shower running and stared at the tiled floor until the hot water ran out and the silence crept back in. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I didn't tear through his drawers looking for hidden flash drives or burner phones like the movies say wives do. I already knew what I'd find. Nothing. Elias was careful, even with me, especially with me. The part that scared me wasn't the charges. It was how easily I could stay still, how well I understood the art of silence, and how much I knew without ever asking the questions out loud. I stood behind the podium with a trembling voice and perfectly chosen earrings. The press conference wasn't my idea. The attorneys said I needed to get ahead of it, reclaim the narrative. Be honest, be emotional. Be wounded but not broken. America loves a survivor. So I stood there, hair pulled back, soft makeup, a navy blouse that made me look maternal, composed, and incapable of criminal intent. "My name is Marin Grant," I said. The flashbulbs clicked. "I am the wife of Elias Grant." Another click, another. I didn't know anything. My voice cracked, just a little, just enough, more flashes. "I found out with the rest of you. One moment we were cutting our son's birthday cake. The next, he was gone." I glanced down, swallowed hard, then looked back up, eyes glassy. I am heartbroken, I am devastated. But most of all, I'm confused. I stepped away from the mic before they could ask questions. My lawyer followed, hand on my back, protective, reassuring. We walked into the hallway, and I didn't cry, not once. He whispered, "You nailed it." I gave a tight nod. But once we were alone in the elevator, just us, no press, no lenses, no microphones, I caught my reflection in the mirrored doors. And I smiled. It didn't reach my eyes. And it wasn't a smile of relief. It was recognition. I hadn't said a single lie, I just didn't say everything. He looked smaller in orange. That was my first thought when I stepped into the visiting room, that somehow the jumpsuit muted him. Dimmed him. The man who used to light up rooms now looked like a blurred version of himself. He didn't look up right away. Didn't stand. Just sat at the table, hands cuffed in front of him, staring at nothing. I waited for the guard to nod, then walked in, sat down across from him. Silence settled between us like dust. He was the first to speak. "I didn't think you'd come." I studied him. The way his left eye twitched, the one that always gave him away when he was lying. It wasn't twitching now. "I wanted to see if you'd look me in the eye." He didn't. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "You let them take you." I didn't have a choice. You had hundreds of choices, thousands of transactions, millions of dollars moved. He exhaled slowly, still didn't look up. "You're good at this," he said finally. I tilted my head. "So were you." That got his attention. His eyes met mine and something flickered there, not regret, not shame, admiration. "You always were," he said, "better than me at staying clean." "Is that what I did?" He didn't answer. The door buzzed once. 5 minutes left. He leaned back, voice low. "They think they know everything. They don't. They will." He smiled then, small, almost proud. And I couldn't tell if it was a threat or a warning. My attorney didn't want me to go. We sat in his office with blinds half closed and a case file thick enough to need its own chair. He tapped a highlighter against the table like it could soften the words he was about to say. Marin, if you attend this trial, you need to be prepared. I'm not fragile. This isn't about fragility. It's about truth, or the version of it that gets dragged into a courtroom. I have a right to be there. You do, he said. But rights come with risks. He opened the folder, laid out pages like puzzle pieces. Bank statements, flight records, warehouse leases, names I didn't recognize, email chains I never read, or maybe I had. He leaned forward. There's more than financials. There are whispers, interviews, surveillance. They're building a narrative. About him. About both of you. I didn't flinch. He watched me for a moment, then said, they're going to try to prove he didn't act alone. I crossed my legs, folded my hands, and met his stare. Then they'd better have proof. He sat back. You're very calm. I'm very tired. He nodded slowly. I'll be sitting 2 rows behind you, he said. Don't react to anything, don't whisper, don't blink too hard. Every movement of yours will be analyzed, by jurors, by reporters, by people who want a woman like you to crack. I stood, smoothed my blouse. I'm not here to crack. Then I walked out of his office, heels steady, pulse quiet, because I needed to know the truth. Not about the charges, not about the money. I needed to know who the hell I married. The courtroom was colder than I expected, not in temperature, in energy. Like even the walls were trained to withhold warmth. Like truth had to fight its way in. I arrived early. Hair pinned, suit pressed, expression blank. The photographers outside clicked through every step I took, but I didn't pause, I didn't nod. I didn't give them anything they could zoom in on, and caption with words like regretful or in shock. Inside, the air smelled like old paper and polished wood. Reporters lined the benches. Jurors filed in with the kind of faces people wear when they know the whole world is watching, too still, too quiet, too perfect. The bailiff called order. The judge entered. I sat in the second row behind the defense table, where Elias stood between his lawyer and a cup of untouched water. He didn't look at me, didn't glance over. His jaw was clenched, his hands clasped. And still, even in that jumpsuit, even behind the cameras and the suspicion, he looked like someone in control of the room. Opening statements began. The prosecution painted him as a thief, a manipulator, a man who built empires out of paper trails and offshore accounts. A man who smiled for family pictures while money shifted hands in the shadows. I didn't move, didn't react, didn't flinch when they said conspiracy. I just sat with my son's toy car tucked in my purse, the tiny blue one he wouldn't sleep without, and stared straight ahead. Every once in a while, someone would glance back at me, just a second too long, as if watching to see when the cracks would form. They didn't. At least not on the outside. Day one was numbers, charts, transfers. A parade of forensic accountants who explained, with eerie calm, how money disappeared and reappeared under different names, through fake charities and shelf companies and accounts that lived for 3 hours before being emptied and erased. They pointed to Elias' signature on documents I'd never seen. Dates that overlapped with family vacations. Transactions that cleared while he held my hand on red carpets. A Cayman Islands account opened on the same day our son was born. The prosecutor paced like he was narrating a documentary. This is not the work of impulse, he said. This is architecture. Someone behind me whispered, she really didn't know. I didn't turn around. I didn't acknowledge it. I pressed my palm against my purse instead, fingers curling around the plastic edges of the toy car, chipped at the wheel, smooth from so many nights in my son's hands. Elias didn't look at me, not once. His lawyer scribbled notes and whispered, but Elias just sat there, composed, contained. A man who had built mazes for a living, and maybe even liked watching people get lost in them. By noon, the jury's eyes had glazed over from spreadsheets and wire logs. But mine hadn't, because the numbers weren't confusing to me. They were familiar, too familiar. And the more I listened, the more I felt it building, not shock, not grief. Recognition. The second day was worse. Not because of what they said, but because of what they showed. The screen rolled down like we were in a classroom. The courtroom lights dimmed, and the prosecutor adjusted the projector with the calm of a man who knew exactly what was coming. This footage, he said, was recovered from a storage unit in Queens, registered under one of Mr. Grant's now-dissolved shell companies. He tapped a key, the video blinked to life, low resolution, grainy. Security footage time-stamped 2 years ago, the corner of the frame flickering every few seconds. It showed a warehouse, dark, quiet. Elias appeared after 13 seconds, alone. He approached the shutter, unlocked it with a key. The camera angle caught the side of his face, blurred by motion but unmistakable. He walked inside, carried out a box, medium-sized, nothing flashy. He set it down near the loading dock and stood still for a moment, looking off-frame. Then another figure passed behind him, just a shadow, feminine outline. Slender, she didn't step into the light, but she was there. The prosecutor paused the frame, zoomed in. "Is that her?" he asked, turning just enough to gesture toward me. The judge didn't say a word, neither did the defense. But the jury turned. All 12 of them, so did the reporters, so did my sister, so did he. I didn't blink. Didn't move, didn't speak. Because even though the footage was blurry, even though the figure could have been anyone, even though my name hadn't been said, I recognized the jacket. I'd worn it before, and so had she. Patrick took the stand like he was walking into a confessional, hair shorter than I remembered, tie crooked, a small tremor in his left hand as he adjusted the mic. He and Elias had been best friends since college. They started their first business together, traveled together, godfather to our son. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at Elias either. The prosecutor asked him to state his name, his relationship, his role. He answered softly. Then the questions shifted. Did Elias Grant act alone? Patrick hesitated, breathed in, and said, "Not always." Just like that, the courtroom tightened. "Can you elaborate?" "There were meetings," he said. "Sometimes just us. Other times, there was someone else." "Who?" Patrick looked down. "I don't know, I never got a name, never saw a full face. But you believe he had a partner." He nodded once. There were instructions Elias never wrote down. Files that moved from burner phone to burner phone. He wasn't smart enough to cover those trails himself. Someone cleaned up after him. "Are you saying Mr. Grant had helped laundering money?" "Yes." "From whom?" "I told you, I don't know." "And what about the warehouse?" Patrick's mouth opened. Closed, his voice dipped lower. "He told me not to ask questions, just to show up when he called." "And did you?" "I did." He didn't need to say more. The implication hung there like smoke no one dared fan away. I didn't twitch. Didn't look down, didn't break the posture I'd perfected since this began. But I felt the heat rise around me. A juror took a note. A reporter turned. Even Elias' lawyer shifted in his chair. Patrick stepped down 5 minutes later. Never looked my way, but I felt the weight of his testimony settle on my shoulders, like a hand that used to feel like friendship. Now pressing, now warning. It came out during a sidebar. One of those hushed conversations near the judge's bench, voices muffled, attorneys tight-lipped. A clerk scribbling furiously while the jury sat idle, watching like an audience unsure if the play had paused or ended. I was sitting 2 rows back, my fingers pressed against the seam of my blazer. I didn't lean in, didn't fidget, just watched. After the bench conference, the lead agent, the one who'd cuffed Elias at the party, took the stand. He answered questions about chain of evidence, confirmed timelines, authenticated footage. But then the prosecutor asked, did the defendant make any unsolicited statements during custody? He nodded. Yes. What did he say? The agent glanced at Elias, then at the judge, then at me. He cleared his throat. We were walking him from holding to interview. He looked at me, kind of smiled, then he said. A pause, the jury leaned forward. The reporter 2 seats from me stopped typing. The agent continued, voice level. She's not who you think. He let the words land, waited for someone to interrupt. No one did. The prosecutor didn't follow up. The judge didn't object. The defense didn't move. And I didn't blink. Because he hadn't said it to me, he said it about me to someone else. Just loud enough for it to be remembered. Planted, watered, grown, he wanted them to question. Not accuse, not yet, just wonder. And in that single sentence, Elias Grant had done what he always did best. He told half a truth and let everyone else write the rest. She came to my house uninvited. No knock. Just the doorbell, sharp and sudden, and when I opened it, there was my sister, arms crossed, eyes already burning. You could have told me. I didn't ask what she meant. I just stepped aside. She walked in without waiting, her heels hitting the hardwood like punctuation. I followed her into the kitchen. Neither of us sat. "I don't know what you think you saw," I said. She scoffed. "You mean the news, the trial. The part where his best friend said he didn't act alone." I opened the fridge just to close it again. My hands needed something to do. She leaned against the counter, watching me. "I told people you didn't know anything," she said. "I defended you. I said you were blindsided." "I was." "Were you?" Her voice cracked. "Because I remember the gifts." "What gifts?" "The necklace that showed up 3 years ago. The one you said he bought from a little boutique in Italy." But there was no Italy, no trip, no photos. She took a step forward. "And what about the move, the sudden one? The one where you said the foundation offered him a better office, and we shouldn't ask questions." I didn't speak. "I thought you were protecting him," she said, "but now I think you were protecting yourself." I turned to face her, voice low. "You didn't ask." "No," she said, "you didn't let us." The silence between us stretched. Finally, she whispered, "Did you help him?" I looked at her, looked through her, and said nothing, because silence was safer than the truth. And I was still deciding which one I wanted to survive. The defense began to unravel on a Wednesday. Maybe it was the pressure. Maybe it was the evidence. Or maybe Elias just stopped pretending. His lawyer, a man with a jaw like carved marble and a voice built for press conferences, started strong. But then the timelines didn't line up. The witness statements got fuzzy. The explanations contradicted each other like poorly rehearsed lies. And Elias? He didn't flinch, didn't whisper, didn't correct. He let the cracks form and didn't patch them. I sat there in my usual seat. Second row, same coat. Same expression, a portrait of quiet loyalty. But under the table, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I kept them clasped in my lap, pressed my thumbnail into the side of my index finger until the skin broke. No one noticed. Not even when I dabbed the blood with a tissue and tucked it neatly into my purse. The courtroom was quiet except for the slow collapse of a narrative, one where Elias was simply misunderstood, one where the money trail was accidental, one where he was innocent. The jury shifted in their seats. The reporters whispered between keystrokes. Even the judge looked bored because the story they'd been fed wasn't holding, and everyone could feel the turn coming, not toward guilt, but toward someone else, someone who hadn't cracked, someone still sitting perfectly still, perfectly dressed, perfectly unreadable. Someone like me. The prosecutor stood with a paper in his hand like it was a match about to be lit. "We'd like to enter a new development into the record," he said, voice calm but electric. "The defendant has been offered a deal." No one breathed. Elias didn't react, just stared ahead, motionless. The prosecutor turned toward the jury. 15 years, reduced from 25, in exchange for one thing. He paused, not for drama, but for gravity. His accomplice. The word echoed. A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Somewhere behind me, a reporter whispered, "Here it is." Elias leaned forward slightly. His lawyer didn't stop him, didn't whisper, didn't even blink. The judge looked at him. "Mr. Grant, do you understand the terms of the offer?" He nodded once. "Will you be accepting it?" Elias didn't speak immediately. He just turned his head, not toward the judge, not toward the prosecutor, toward me. It wasn't fast, it wasn't slow, just deliberate enough to mean something. The jury watched him, then followed his gaze to me. My heart didn't pound, my breath didn't hitch. But I felt every gaze shift like a weight settling onto my skin. Elias kept his eyes on mine, not accusing, not afraid, just waiting. Like he was handing me the silence to break, like he wanted to know if I would. The room was quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't happen in courtrooms, not even when people are crying, not even when someone confesses, because this wasn't grief. This was anticipation. The judge leaned forward slightly, hands folded over the bench. "Mr. Grant, the court requires your response for the record." Elias didn't look away from me. His lips parted. Then he said it slowly, like each word cost him something. "Was she involved?" He repeated the judge's question aloud, then turned back toward the mic. Silence. 1 beat, 2, 3. And then he leaned in and said, "She's always been smarter than me." No direct answer, just that, and it was enough. The jury murmured. The bailiff barked for order. The reporters scribbled like wildfire. But I didn't move, I didn't blink. I just adjusted my son's head where it rested on my shoulder, heavy with sleep, and kept my gaze forward, because he hadn't said yes. He hadn't said no, he'd said exactly what he wanted them to wonder. And now the doubt was alive in the room, breathing, growing, feeding on everything I didn't say. The lights dimmed again, just like before. But this time no one leaned back, no one relaxed, because everyone knew what was coming. The prosecutor approached the tech table and whispered something. The screen behind him blinked once, then again, then turned black, and then a file name appeared. Grant email dump clip 17, MP4. The judge gave a subtle nod. The prosecutor pressed play. At first there was only audio, my voice, low, controlled. Don't send it yet, wait until he moves the funds. I felt every spine in the courtroom go rigid. Then the video began. It wasn't warehouse footage. It wasn't surveillance grain. It was screen capture. A computer. A desktop I hadn't used in over a year. Familiar icons, familiar folders. The cursor hovered over an email draft, a list of numbers. Routing paths, bank codes, nothing labeled, everything known. The screen recording flicked to another window, a note titled Schedule. A line of text sat there blinking. Wait until the 16th. He won't notice until the 18th. The screen froze, the lights came back up. No one spoke. No one had to, my voice was enough, wait until he moves the funds. The judge didn't turn, but the jury did, all of them, then the reporters. Then the spectators, then Elia's, and the last person to look at me was my own attorney. He didn't speak, just stared, like he was finally reading the fine print he'd skipped all along. He didn't ask for a recess, didn't whisper to his lawyer, didn't look back at me, he just stood. The judge didn't stop him, neither did the bailiff. Elias stepped forward, calm as a man ordering coffee. His hands were cuffed, his voice wasn't. I'll speak, he said. The prosecutor glanced at the judge. The judge gave a tired nod. Elias cleared his throat, and then he said, I did it. No stutter, no drama, just fact. I created the accounts, I signed the forms. I moved the money. The courtroom rustled, shock, relief, confirmation, but he didn't pause. She didn't want to be part of it. That silenced everything. She told me to stop more than once. His eyes didn't drift toward me, but his words did. She stayed because of our son, not because she agreed with what I did. He smiled, just barely. She always knew how to play the long game. The prosecutor opened his mouth, but Elias kept going. I take full responsibility for the fraud, for the cover-ups, for dragging her name into this. He turned, finally, just enough to face the jury. Not every partner is guilty of what they survive. It sounded noble, it sounded rehearsed, but I knew Elias, and Elias didn't give things away. He offered that speech like a deal, like a shield, like a curtain. Because sometimes the best way to protect someone isn't by telling the truth. It's by telling a better lie. Everyone turned. Not just their heads, their entire bodies. The jury, the reporters, the courtroom sketch artist, even the guard by the exit who hadn't blinked in 2 hours. All of them turned toward me. I stayed still, not cold, not proud. Just still. Elias had handed them a story wrapped in sorrow and sealed with loyalty, and now they wanted to see if I fit inside it. My son shifted in my lap, arms curling around my neck in his sleep. The toy car slipped from my purse and rolled beneath the bench. I didn't reach for it, because if I bent down, they might think I was hiding. And if I smiled, they'd say I didn't regret it. And if I cried, they'd wonder if it was guilt or grief. So I gave them nothing. Not a blink, not a twitch, not a single second of hesitation. My lawyer leaned toward me, whispered something I didn't hear. His hand was shaking. The agent from the first day, the one who'd said, "You'll understand everything soon," stood by the door, eyes narrowed, like he was trying to remember if he'd missed something the first time. Maybe he had. Or maybe he hadn't missed anything at all. Maybe he just didn't want to believe it. My name hadn't been spoken. Not directly. But the courtroom no longer saw me as a bystander. They saw me as the question still unanswered. And in a room this hungry for answers. Silence was starting to look like strategy. My son stirred again, whispered, "Mommy." I stroked his hair, didn't speak, didn't move, didn't deny a thing. The courthouse steps were a gauntlet, cameras. Microphones, journalists shouting my name like it belonged to them. I walked through it without pausing. My son in one arm, my lawyer 3 steps behind me. The sun was too bright. The sidewalk too clean, the world too unchanged. Someone shouted, "Did you know Marin?" Another, "Were you his partner?" And the one that made me stop for half a second, "Is silence the same as guilt?" I didn't answer, just tightened my grip on the little body against my chest and kept walking, 1 foot in front of the other. The press release from the prosecutor's office would go out in an hour. It would say Elias Grant was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for wire fraud and tax evasion. No homicide charges. No accomplice named. It would say I was never indicted. Not enough evidence. No digital trail they could tie to me, no transaction with my name on it, just a blurred clip, a few suggestions, and a marriage that dissolved in public. I was free, technically, legally, but not quietly, because everyone who saw that last clip, everyone who heard the way Elias looked at me instead of answering, everyone who watched me walk out of that courtroom with perfect posture, they knew something, or thought they did. I laid my son down for his nap when we got home. I folded his blanket with the quiet care of a woman who's learned how to live gently. Then I poured a glass of wine, sat on the back porch, and stared at the garden he planted 2 summers ago. It was still growing, even after everything. And I thought, was I guilty, or just smarter? Maybe there's no difference. Maybe the only real crime is leaving a trail behind. And I never did, not one they could follow. Not one they could prove, just enough to wonder, and just enough to walk away. Thank you for watching. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I love you all.